A very warm good morning to you all students. Is my voice is clear? Can anyone send me to comment box so that I get confirmed that the voice is clear so that we can proceed the class. And this is the fifth day. Yeah. Okay. Okay, that fine. Discussion and all that. What we have provided you, the study materials, self-learning materials. See the word self-learning materials, and it's prepared in an instructional mode. You can visualize the faculty while discussing. But in all the way, there are sort of doubts, questions that have to be clarified. You can always, make a call. Otherwise, visit the department, and that's one thing we can sure about it. The student, those who have doubts about the text, they can always visit the department, consult the faculty, have the faculty's number and talk to them, and certainly you will benefit from that. This is the system, the open learning education, distance education, and where this is the custom has been provided. You can talk to us over phone. And today, the last day, the fifth day, so far I have dealt three subjects, three paper, the Canterbury Tales and the tragic history of Dr. Faustus and the Rape of the Law. And today I'm going to teach you the fourth paper, the Shakespearean Sonnets and Criticism. Shakespearean sonnets and criticism. Probably by now you all are thorough with Shakespearean sonnets. You have read them, and teachers have taught you so far. And now, and you're going to study the criticism. And probably yesterday, some teachers have started the criticism, the way you understand how other 20th century critics they have put forth their viewpoint on Shakespearean plays. And Shakespeare, we know that is such an Elizabethan, a great dramatist of English literature, who is read by the everyone. Looking back, what A.C. Bradley says in this text, I'm going to teach you today in the block 2. We have A.C. Bradley's criticism, the substance of Shakespearean tragedy. This is the lecture delivered by A.C. Bradley. This is the lecture in the form of a lecture that he delivered. He is a 21st century critic who extensively put his, very validated, a very judicious, the critic viewpoints. The validated, that means accepted, and the judicious, yes, he has put forth the right and just when he assessed the Shakespearean text. And this is where today. As the objectives of the course talks about, to trace the progress and development of Shakespearean sonnets. Of course, you have by now you are accustomed, you are familiar with these sonnets. Probably you have read the 120 out of 124 sonnets. We have prescribed nearly some 15 sonnets, and you are familiar with them. And after that, to trace the history of Shakespeare's criticism from the 17th to 19th century. So it traverses from the period from 17th till 19th century, whereas A.C. Bradley, he stands in the 21st century, 90s, 30s, the critic. And let us see how he put forth his viewpoint to Shakespearean text, especially tragedy as such. When we talk about the tragedy, the two important periods come to our mind. One is the Greek plays, another one the Elizabethan plays, the Shakespearean plays. There are two types of tragedy which are the popularized in the world of history of English literature. One is the Greek tragedies. For example, we have Agamemnon and Oedipus Rex. Agamemnon and Oedipus Rex, they are the Greek tragedies. When we talk about the Shakespearean tragedies, there are four important tragedies. For example, we have a Julius Caesar, Macbeth, Othello, and King Lear. There are other tragedies like Hamlet and the Richard II. But when you talk about the canonical form, what are the tragedies is all about? So we'll get four important texts. For example, Julius Caesar, Othello, Macbeth, and King Lear. So here, what is the viewpoint of A.C. Bradley? What is he going to say here? See, even before we understand, I always tell you that to our students, we are giving you certain ideas which certainly pave the way for understanding while you're reading your study material. So we are not going to delve the entire text, in a textual manner. So what we do here, we give you a very comprehensive picture, a kind of a nutshell, the entire text in a nutshell form, so that you will get an idea and you make use of that in your examination. And while you're reading your answer, and preparation for the examination and all that. So I must quote you this important line. Listen it carefully. A.C. Bradley is a pivotal figure. He stands as a magnificent 21st century critic, and he is a pivotal figure, a very important, a very predominant role he has. There's a figure in Shakespearean criticism. In him, the best of all criticism culminated and is the starting point to all the later criticism of Shakespearean tragedies. And it paved the way for the further development of tragedy, how a tragedy can be assessed. So it stands as a the kind of a magnum opus, or the stands as a the text which helps further 21st century critics to go ahead with their interpretations. So I told you interpretation should be just, judicious, and all that. So what are the very predominant message when you understand H.C. Bradley's text? I want to tell you in a nutshell form. There are other texts possible. Macbeth I take up, otherwise Oedipus Rex. These two texts, one from Shakespearean paper, another one from last paper, comparative literature, so that I'll touch upon all the texts from each five paper. So that is my intention. If time permits, certainly I'll also take up that text as well. So coming back here, hope you're able to follow that. So here, the Bradley's approach, H.C. Bradley's approach on Shakespearean plays through an intensive analysis of the characters. We have heard the word called analysis. We have heard the word, or we have heard the word called interpretation. So, what is this intensive analysis? The intensive analysis, in the sense that we are understanding the characters inch by inch. He does a thorough psychological reading. So the intensive reading is there when you understand A.C. Bradley's. What does he say here? See, A.C. Bradley, he, as it is a landmark in the history of criticism, he defines two terminologies. One is character is destiny. Remember, the character is destiny, and another word that is destiny in character. For example, character is destiny means destiny of fate is not predetermined. Whereas when you talk about the Greek plays, the role or a fate has been predetermined. You're getting my point? The chorus in the plays in the beginning itself come and tells this is what going to happen in the life of Oedipus Rex and Agamemnon. So there, the characters, they become a puppet in the hands of the writer. I mean, it's a predetermined. Thus already the chorus himself knows that what will happen in the writers, and only we understand while reading the text how it can start the progress from their life to the entire doom. Otherwise, they're suffering till the death, and how the fate takes a predominant role. That is one thing. So here I told you the character is destiny because of the character's own folly, their own weakness, their own certain hamartia. What Greek, the Aristotle says that they have their own tragic flaw, so they led their own life. They reach the tragic of their own life. For example, we have a Macbeth. Macbeth is over ambitious. You're over ambitious, and he's too greedy as well. And what happens? He led his own life. He killed the Duncan. Remember, in Macbeth, he killed the Duncan, and he has become over greedy or over ambitious. That is his hamartia. That is his tragic flaw. So that is what is A.C. Bradley calls it as a character is destiny, because we have our own problem, we have our own tragic flaw, amartia, so that we lead our own life. They're almost like flesh and blood character. What we are, Shakespearean characters are not mere heroes. They're all very simple. They are very much like a flesh and blood character. We can also look ourselves into those characters. For example, Macbeth, Hamlet, or King Lear, or a Julius Caesar, or Othello, another character. So, are you not people? They are very suspicious also. So, Shakespearean characters, as A.C. Bradley says, when he makes an intensive reading, he says that they are not predetermined. We don't know what happens in the life because of their own tragic, flaws. They lead their own life. But whereas Destiny's character is not like that. Their fate itself is predetermined. This is what will happen in the life of them, which means the chorus comes and tells in the beginning that yes, this is what happens in the life of Oedipus Rex. This is what happens in the life of Agamemnon in the beginning itself. So we know what happens to the character. But whereas in Shakespearean characters, we have to read the entire text from Act 1 to last act and to understand what happens to the character. And no one will come and give a very hint. So the role of chorus takes a very predominant role in destiny in character. But whereas in Shakespearean text, it is just mere the character is destiny. They have their own problem. They do a mistake. So this is what A.C. Bradley he approached. He said it very clearly in this text. For example, all the text. For example, I just give you one example. What A.C. Bradley tells a character is destiny. Because of course I teach this text, a Macbeth. I want to just take a few lines here. We know all that the Macbeth is the one who kills King Duncan with the help of his wife, Lady Macbeth, who persuades him to kill him when they invited him to the house. And this is one thing. And here there is a very appealing psychological scene in which Banquo Ghost. This is one thing. And even the Shakespeare has such a power to create a supernatural elements as a human being. So that you can see through the character of Banquo's ghost. And here, when you look at the Lady Macbeth lines, all the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. And that means the kind of though there is no blood stain in the hands, the all the perfumes of Arabia will never cleanse a hand. Which means how fervent, how vehement, how strong the guilt of the character is. The Shakespeare, I mean, A.C. Bradley, he had gone through that. He say that this is how he goes through to analyze a character such a way to apply a psychological and moral issues. And for example, let me stress a little more on what do you mean by destiny in character. I told you destiny in character in the sense which is predetermined. We know what happens in the beginning itself in the text. For example, in many of the famous tragedies, like Oedipus Rex and Agamemnon, it means fate or destiny is responsible for a tragic end. Okay, and in the human beings, on the contrary, Shakespearean tragic characters represent the theory of character is destiny. So we can bifurcate the Elizabethan theater and bifurcate the theater of Shakespearean and how the characters and how this fate takes a predominant role. And AC Bradley's views, this is how you can keep in your mind, and you can go through the text further. You'll understand even more depth, the depth about the text here. So here, I must tell you one thing. There are two important concepts that the Shakespeare discusses in this text. For example, one is the poetic justice. Another one, the moral lesson. So, what do you mean by poetic justice? What do you mean by moral lesson? That these two terms, the what A.C. Bradley says in his criticism, is it really true? Does Shakespeare gives a poetic justice? Let us see now. See, sometimes it is questioned whether there is a justice in a character tragedy. We often see that the good person suffers and a bad person prospers. This is what Shakespeare does. Shakespeare, I think he had never given a poetic justice. For example, the best example we have Death of Cordelia. Remember the Cordelia where she loves her father very much, and where other two daughters they just mere pampered him and got the property, and eventually what has happened? They left King Lear in the lurch, and whereas the innocent character like Cordelia was not given justice. So here, Shakespeare is a very cruel in portraying this character. For example, he sacrificed the innocence for the convenience. This is what even other critics also say that about Shakespearean portrayal of character. There is no poetic justice. Probably a good should prevail over, should victory over. But whereas Shakespeare, he portrays characters such a way that the good will never get benefited here. So what happened here? So we often see that the good person suffers, a bad person prospers. Even in Desdemona as well. Desdemona was a very innocent. What would happen to her? When the Othello demands for the handkerchief when somebody is stolen it, and whereas the characters full of mild and innocent and the polish and patience and the demeanor, the good character, the amiable character, they are never treated as good in Shakespearean plays. So the poetic justice was not given justice in his text. And then when it comes to moral lesson, we should also remember, according to A.C. Bradley, the villain has to be punished. but it doesn't happen most of the plays of Shakespeare. And this is what AC Bradley says, that the poetic justice was not given well, and whether there was a moral lesson in it. AC Bradley's further question: through tragedy we learn moral lesson too. Remember, so what happened here? The tragedy we learn the lessons of morality. All the tragedies should give some moral. For example, when you read Dr. Faustus, what moral do you get? The moral is one should not be over ambitious. One should not go against the god. One should not study the necromancy. One should not go and study the black magic. You should be what you are. Remember, and whereas that's a moral. But when you talk about the Shakespearean moral lesson, does it really give a morality, or moral lessons in this text? And thus, the tragedy teaches us that we are punished from our weakness. Through tragedy, we learn lessons of morality. We also learn that there is a supreme power which controls our life and entire humanity existence. Yes, absolutely. So, what A.C. Bradley says that there is a moral in Shakespearean plays. How? Can anyone guess how there is a morality in his text? The morality in the sense, Shakespearean characters, they are very much flesh and blood characters. They're very much day-to-day characters. They're very much the practical characters. The practical wisdom is there, and his plays they highlights what is there in actual life, and how mistakes can be rectified, and how problems can be solved, and how people can find a way for the betterment of the life. So all this practical wisdom, the practical morals are given in Shakespearean plays. But when it comes to poetic justice, does it really give? That we wouldn't find over there. So this is what we come across in Shakespearean, tragedies. But one thing, when you read Julius Caesar, when you read King Lear, when you read other characters, there is a kind of a moral instruction. There is a moral stratagems, the strategies, the plans, the constructive plot that they instruct the reader, they instruct the audience that one should not go against, the God, and they should do the right thing. So there is a moral lesson that we can come across in Shakespearean text. So today there is another text called Macbeth, which is prescribed for your study. Remember, it's prescribed for your study, and probably I just give you the Macbeth is a play, is one of the best tragedies of Shakespeare. Although I just touched upon and I just throws the light on some the major concepts of A.C. Bradley's lecture Judgment on Shakespearean tragedy, the substance of Shakespearean plays, where I talked about his the how Shakespearean plays, they have their own anomalies, they have their own psychological problems, how they have their own weakness, they have their own amercia, all that have been spoken. And the second phase, I also talked about the character destiny and destiny's character. And I also made a distinction between Greek tragedies as well as Elizabethan tragedies. And after that, I just described the role of moral lesson as well as poetic justice. Whether the poetic justice was given in Shakespearean text, otherwise whether the moral message is given in Shakespearean plays. That I just spoke in a nutshell. And now I'm going to take up another very significant text, that is a Macbeth, which is a play where Shakespeare portray almost human characters, the flesh and blood characters, the man who is after over ambitious, the man who become all greedy. The man who easily persuaded by people. For example, his wife. The words of his wife, the Lady Macbeth, makes him even more greedy, and that led to his own life. That's called as a catastrophe. That is called as a destruction of an individual, destruction of a character. So that we come across in Shakespeare. I mean, in Macbeth. Macbeth's journey from an innocent general, the army, a nobleman officer, and how he over a period of time gradually he led his own destruction and the way he died. This we come across here. See, for one thing I must tell you, when you read a text, the points, the concepts like the psychology, the psychological observations, the concepts of some dramatic techniques, and the concepts of the power and ambition all play a very vital role in Shakespearean plays. The psychological and the power, the hunger for power, and the psychological effect and political ambitions, and all these are become a very part and parcel of his plays. For example, It dramatizes the damaging psychological and the physical effects and the political ambition of those who seek for power. And I tell you, this is the text where Shakespeare he emphasizes more on some certain dogma, certain dictum. The dictum is called, it dramatizes the psychological effect and the political ambition and those who seek for power. For example, those who have a hunger for power and how their life started, how their life dramatizes, they'll be reckless. They're kind of a wreckage, the physical wreckage, the mental wreckage. They won't be peace and the serene. They always find for something till they reach their intention. So what happened here? Shakespeare Macbeth is such that. This is a very small story. A brave Scottish general named Macbeth, he receives a prophecy from a trio of witches. I'm just giving you an nutshell, and I just get back to the act-wise analysis here. So Macbeth he receives a prophecy from three witches. What is the prophecy? They say that the Macbeth will be, the future. He'll be a Thane of Cawdor. Of course, he's now the Thane of Glamis, but he'll be the Thane of Cawdor, and after that he'll be a king of Scotland further. So this is the prophecy. And mere a general army officer, a nobleman, there is a seed of suspicion put in the mind, and that developed and is sprouted, and a fine day it's burst out when his wife, Lady Macbeth, supports him to reach his goal. Yes, you listen the words of the three witches, and probably a fine day you'll be a king of Scotland, and there is a hunger for power, and there is a motiveless, the hunger motiveless in the sense we don't know why why I seek for something, why I crave for something. For example, I'm happy with whatever God has given to me, but I don't be happy with if somebody tells that somebody has prophesied you on something, somebody predicted something on you that you will reach to a point where you will be invincible. Nobody can beat you, nobody can vanquish you, nobody can just defeat you. If that is the situation, that blossom in your mind, and you do whatever the things come to your way, isn't it? You can be a good, or you can be a evil, you can be the monster to a certain extent. So here the Macbeth become a monster when we read the play gradually. Okay, and what happens here? Consumed by ambition and spurred to action by his wife, and his wife she allures him. She always try to persuade him to do all kind of things, the evil deeds. The one of the evil deeds is killing the Duncan. So we have one word called Atithi Devo Bhava, isn't it? So we treat the guest, the host, treat the guest as the god, because with a lot of trust and the confidence that they'll be safer, they reach the house. And how the host have to behave with the same dignity, with the same religiosity, with the same the treatment, one has to accept them. But whereas it doesn't happen here. Macbeth, when Duncan himself visited his house, and how Macbeth, his mind has been poisoned by his wife, and they create a ploy, they create a conspiracy to kill them. So this is the story that we come across here. So he's so what happened? So here, the spurred with the action by his wife, Macbeth murders his king Duncan and take the Scottish throne of himself, and he's become a king. Once he has become a king, does he happy? Will he be really happy year after that? So that is the question that we come across in this text. So he's then wrecked with the guilt and paranoia. So he suffered from the guilt, and then so forced to commit more and more murders to protect himself. So he does a series of murder to just protect himself. And from enmity and suspicion, he soon becomes a tyrannical ruler. He has become a tyrannical ruler, and he's become very tyranny and tyrannical ruler. He imposes upon people, he kills them, he doesn't treat them properly, and he has become such a rude and insolvent. And the bloodbath and consequent evil wars swiftly take Macbeth and take Lady Macbeth into the realms of madness and death. Of course, there's a lot of bloodshed here. In the play, we can come across, and there is a malady, the mental malady, and how Lady Macbeth she suffered a psychological problem, and all that we come across in the play. Hope you got the point. And here I'm just going to analysis the characters in the act in a nutshell. I introduce you a few characters here. I introduce, yes, it is a tragic play, and and what happened? There are a few characters, a very important character. I just want to highlight on them. The first important character, that is the Duncan. He's the King of Scotland, and we have Malcolm, and he's the eldest son of Duncan, and we have Donald Bain, and he's the Duncan's youngest son. So they are the one group. The another group we have here is that is the Macbeth. He's a general in the army of the king. The one is in the hierarchy, the Duncan and his family is one side. In the second category, when we talk about the hierarchy in the play, so Duncan, he belongs to that group and his two sons and himself. And gradually we have another, group that is noblemen, the army general. We have a Macbeth, a general in the army of the king. And he's the the Thane of Glamis at that time. He's the one who takes care of the Glamis. The Thane is the one who controls over an army nobleman. So at present he is the Thane of Glamis, and he'll be the future king of Scotland, as the three witches prophesied. Remember in the beginning. So this is a small information about the Macbeth. And after that we have another important character, that is Lady Macbeth. She's the lioness. She's such a lady, and she's the main culprit who led Macbeth to the destruction, his own wife. So that you should remember. So Macbeth wife, and later she'll become a queen of Scotland, and that will not complete. That's not for perennial. That's not for a longer time. There has to be the end to the death of this both husband and wife. So this is one thing. And after that, we have a Banquo. He's also a Macbeth friend, and he's a general army of King Duncan place. So Macbeth and the Banquo, much before the act starts, they are in a army general. They are the very good noble servants. So that is one thing. And we have other important character, that's Fleance. Fleance is a Banquo's son. Fleance is a Banquo's son. And we have a Macduff. Macduff is a Thane of Fife. He's a controller of a land of Fife, and where he takes care of that place. And his wife, that's a Lady Macduff. And after that, we have other minor characters like Ross, Seward, and Hecate, three witches. They become a very predominant character in the text. So when the act starts, the first act starts, how does it start? So this play, it consists of five important acts: the act 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. So I give you each and every act in a nutshell form, and you make use of that, and you read the study material, and you will understand how the entire text is well described, with illustration, with a lot of illustration, with a lot of points. You understand the text. I'm trying to give you the as simple as possible, to give you the whole text in a nutshell. And I have another text, that is Oedipus Rex, the king. Possible I just throw a light on that. So coming back here, so how the act starts. The first one, amidst the thunder and the lightning. This is how the opening, the place beginning. There's a lot of thunderbolt. There's a lot of lightning. There is a lot of storm and everything. But one thing you should remember: a great critic, called Aristotle, in his poetics, he talks about that. A Shakespearean characters. He doesn't talk about. He talks about the unities of place, time, and action. Whereas the Greek plays, they maintain certain the place, time, and action, and the unities of place, time, and action. Whereas here, Shakespearean tragedies, they don't follow the place and time. There is only an action. For example, see this play, the unities of place doesn't follow here. It starts somewhere in the mid. Somewhere in the desert. Remember, there is no proper unity that we come across here. That's what even Aristotle discusses in his Poetics, and that will read when you come to second year, in your third or fourth semester. So what's happened? So one thing we understand: Shakespeare tragedy, this tragedy does not follow unities of time, place, instead of the unity of place and time. But the action is there, of course, to the characters. Of course, actions become a very important in his place. That is the only thing that he follows. So amidst the thunder and the lightning, the three witches, they decide that their next meeting will be with the Macbeth. So the three witches, they're the supernatural elements, those who predict those who forecast, those who prophesize things, what will happen. So these three unusual, supernatural, a fairy-like, weird, fairy-like characters, spirits-like characters, deliberately Shakespeare he employed them, he portrayed them here. And these character, they decide that their next meeting will be with the Macbeth. So what happened? In the following scene, a wounded sergeant reports the King Duncan of Scotland, that is Generals Banquo and Macbeth. They are, one is the Macbeth, is a Thane of Glamis, have just defeated the allied forces of Norway and Ireland. So there is one sergeant, the reporter, he informs the King Duncan, our army officer, like both the Macbeth and the Banquo, they win over. They fought, they win over the battle, and now they both the Norway as well as Ireland, where led by the traitorous MacDonald, the Thane of Cawdor, the Macbeth, the King of Kingsmen, is praised for his bravery and fighting powers. So here, the Duncan, he appreciated both of them. There's a Banquo as well as the Macbeth for defeating both the Norway and the Ireland, and whom they defeated, the MacDonald. Okay. MacDonald, this is the word. So he does that. He defeated them. And further, what happened? The three witches enter the greet. Three witches, they enter on the stage. They greet them with a prophecy. What is a prophecy? They greet them. Though the Banquo challenges them, the first they addresses Macbeth, hailing him as a Thane of Glamis. Of course, he's the Thane of Glamis. And they also address one thing, the Thane of Cawdor now. He has become a Thane of Cawdor, and they prophesy that he's going to be a king of this Cawdor also. And he will become a king hereafter. And he is the king of the Cawdor, and probably he has become a king hereafter too. The Macbeth appears to be sun and silence, has become very much silence. And when Banquo asks of his own fortune, the witches responded paradoxically and saying that he will be less than a Macbeth, and his future descendants, his future generation will also become the king of Scotland. And this is one thing that we all are aware of. Prophesizing Macbeth will be the future, the king of Scotland, the Thane of Cawdor. That is one thing. But Macbeth is get a suspicion then how the Banquo's future descendants, the future generation, will become a king of Scotland. This is one thing that we have to think over. The even Macbeth also thought over it. And Ross, an important character, he arrives and informs the Macbeth of his newly bestowed title. Much before the Thane of Cawdor was declared to Macbeth, the witches they have prophesied, isn't it? So what happened here? The moment the Ross informs to the Macbeth that the King Duncan he bestowed that title, and it's the shock to Macbeth. And see here, the Thane of Cawdor, the first prophecy is fulfilled. That means the witches are there to predict the good thing. They're going to predict something which will happen in the further, which will happen further. And that's true. And Macbeth, previously skeptical, immediately begins to harbor ambitions of becoming a king. And when he declares the Thane of Cawdor, and the words of the witches also fulfilled, and he decided to become a king of the Scotland, and that is kept in his mind. So that we come across and here. And now the King Duncan welcomes and praises Macbeth and the Banquo, and the Duncan declares that he will spend the night at Macbeth's castle. So he's going to the palace of Macbeth, and he's going to stay there. Who? Duncan. And there Macbeth sends a letter, a message to his wife Lady Macbeth, telling her that the witches prophecies. This is what the witches prophesies. And one thing has become true, that I become a Thane of Cawdor, and the King Duncan's entire Scotland, I will be the future king. And will it happen? Will it happen? And what happens here? So he writes a letter, and the Duncan is coming. Somewhere they have the suspicion, what is the plight of the Duncan? What are we going to do to the Duncan? And the only thing, in case if they kill them, and they become a king of Scotland. And what happened? So here, the Macbeth sends a message, a letter saying that Lady Macbeth, telling her about the witches' prophecies. and successfully persuaded him to kill the King Duncan that night. Lady Macbeth tells him, she tried to persuade him such a way that she instilled the terror, instilled and all the words saying that he shouldn't be more innocent. In case if she were to be in his place, how she would have been reacted to kill the Duncan. But whereas the Duncan, he appears more like her fatherly figure, and she uses all kind of the words to persuade him to change his mind to kill the Duncan. And what happens further? And successfully persuade him to kill the Duncan. And that very night, he and Lady Macbeth, they plan to get Duncans to chamberlains, the two officers, and drums, so that they will black out the next morning. They will put the blame on the chamberlains. They created a plot and the conspiracy in such a way that they're putting the blames on and these officers, those who came to protect Duncan, those who came along with the Duncan, and they decided that. And what happened? Just to put the blame on them. So what happened? While Duncan is asleep, Macbeth stabs him. He kills him, despite his doubts and a number of supernatural, instruction. He does that. But whereas in the next morning, Lennox, a Scottish nobleman, and Macduff, the royal Thane of Five, arrive. They all come over there, and they saw that Duncan is in this stage. He's killed. He's murdered. A porter opens the gate, and Macbeth leads them to the king's chamber, where Macduff discovers Duncan's body. So here, Macbeth, he kills them, kill Duncan. So Macbeth and the Macduff. Macduff, I told, he just came to visit him, to see the Duncan, whereas he found the Duncan is dead. Who killed him? Macbeth killed him. And immediately, what happens? And soon after then, Macbeth murders the gods to prevent them from professing their innocence, but claims he did so in a fit of anger over their misdeeds. And Macduff asks him, "Why did you kill these two innocent people?" That means the guards. He said that probably they might have done it, and out of fury, I couldn't control, I killed them. And somewhere Macduff, he got the hint. Probably Macbeth somewhere else will be the culprit who did that. And immediately, what happens? Duncan's son, the Malcolm, and the Donald Bain, they went to England and Ireland respectively, fearing that whoever killed Duncan desired them to demise as well. Whoever killed my father Duncan, they will certainly kill me as well. So, and the rightful heirs, the flight makes them suspect, and Macbeth assumes the throne as the new king of Scotland, as a kinsman of the dead king. Banquo reveals this is to the audience. So what happened? So he occupied the chair. He has become a king of Scotland, who the Macbeth, and the two sons of Duncan. They went to the island and to other places to hide themselves. And further, what happened? So here, but one thing, the witch's prophecies about how his own descendants, that the Banquo inherit the throne, this makes him suspicious of Macbeth. And here the Banquo also very much scared. The witcher said that my future generation, my descendants will become a king of future generation. So what will happen? Does he going to kill me? Will Macbeth kill me? So these are the word which they are in the minds of Banquo. And what happened? So here. Macbeth, also aware of this part of the prophecy, remains uneasy. The Macbeth invite Banquo to a royal banquet, and where he discovered that the Banquo and his young son Fleance, they will be riding out that night. The fearing Banquo's suspicion, the Macbeth, the arrangement arranges to have him murdered. So again, Macbeth does a series of killing, and he wants to kill Banquo now. And what happened? So here, and hiring two men to kill them, the assassins succeed in killing Banquo. So here, Macbeth is also succeeded in killing the Banquo, and he killed him. And what happened further? But Fleance escapes. Fleance escapes, and Macbeth becomes so furious. He fears that his power remains insecure as long as an heir of Banquo remains alive. So Macbeth, he thinks that as long as Fleance is alive, and probably there'll be a chances that he will become as king of Scotland, and he again that keeps in his mind. And there are certain incidents where the bankers ghosts come and hunt the Macbeth, and all that will happen. And suddenly there is a kind of a the Macbeth attitude when one there are visitors to see Macbeth, and they came to his palace and the Lady Macbeth, and there is a the dinner was arranged, and that time there was a lot of peculiar the attitude of the attitude of Macbeth. He was They were all quite panicked, and immediately Lady Macbeth tells the visitor to leave. So from then, the moment the Fleance is escaped from the place, went somewhere, and then there is a lot of psychological trauma, psychological malady developed, and he thinks that probably the Fleance, otherwise Peter, will be the king of Scotland, and he somehow he decided to kill him as well. And further, in Act 4, what happens? The Macbeth disturbed, and he visits the three witches once more and asks them to reveal the truth of their prophecy to him. And now he again wishes to visit the three witches, and he goes to them and he asks them about the future prophecy. To answer his question, they summon horrible apparitions, and they call some apparitions. Apparitions in the sense like the kind of a visage, the face of a ghost, and they're all some apparitions. They call them to answer his question. He went over there to ask about this future prophecy. Will I be again the future king of Scotland? What could be my the future prophecy and all that? He went and asks about it. And to answer his question, they summon horrible apparitions. So the apparitions comes, many apparitions come, each of which offers predictions and further the prophecies to put Macbeth fear at rest. The first apparition tells they conjure an armored head, which tell him to beware of Macduff. The first apparition tells you should be aware of the Macduff. And the second apparition tells that no one born of a woman will be able to harm him. Of course, everybody will be born of a woman. So he tells that no one born of a woman will be able to harm him. So which means Macbeth tells that yes, of course, everyone born of a woman, then nobody will kill me. So this is what he thinks. And the third apparition tells a crowned child holding a tree states that the Macbeth will be safe until the great Burnham Hood comes to Dunsinnen's help, and no forest will move. And he tells that until the great Burnham forest would come in the sense it can't move, it's a stagnant, right? So Macbeth will be happy that it can't move and nobody can kill me. And what happened further? So Macbeth is relieved and feels secure because he knows that all the men are born to women and forests cannot possibly move. And nobody can kill me because the forest can't move and everybody begotten by a woman, and I'll be safer. This is what Macbeth thinks that. And everyone in the Macduff castle is put to death, including Lady Macduff and the young son. So the series of killing is start, and here he starts and he's killing each and everyone. And even they also killed Macduff. I told you because the witches told that even the Macduff will be a problematic to him. Macduff will be the problem to him, and he'll kill him in future. So he went in search of killing him, and whereas he killed his wife, Lady Macduff, and his young son also. So here, gradually, the strange habits of sleepwalking. So far, we understood what's happening in the life of dear students. You're getting, and hope you are able to follow the text. You are so far sending some text, and if you're able to follow this, you can just put a line, put a word here, so that I can just get a consent that yes, you're able to listen, you're active. So I expect to have a couple of messages from your side. So what happened here? There was a lot of strange habit of sleepwalking from Lady Macbeth, and she develops a kind of hallucination. She walks in the sleep, the kind of a delirium, delirium. The psychologically, she suffers, and these are the things that we come across in her attitude. In England, what happened? The strange habits of sleepwalking. Suddenly, Lady Macbeth enters in a trains with a candle in her hand. She comes with a handle. She comes with a candle in her hand, and bemoaning the murders of Duncan. She uttering the word of the how they have killed the Duncans. because she's psychologically out of mind and she's suffering. She had developed hallucination because she helped in killing the Duncan, and she bemoaning the murder of a Duncan and Lady Macbeth and the banquet. She tries to wash the imagery blood stains from her hands, and she tries to remove the stains from her hand. ಆ ರಕ್ತ ಕಲೆಗಳನ್ನ ತನ್ನ ಹ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಇಂದ ವಾಶ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾಳೆ. So there are certain lines where even the all the perfumes of Arabia will not cleanse the hands of Lady Macbeth. So whatever she uses, but the stains cannot be removed, because when you're completely conscious, when your conscience pricks you, when conscience torments you, conscience haunts you so much, you can't be proper, you can't be normal, you will be completely detached from the world of actual. And there is a lot of problem. The malady, she has become a malady, and she's suffering from a lot of problems. And so I told you, these are the famous word that I always tell you people. One, in every act there are very interesting lines, important lines. I strongly advise you, whenever you read the text, and kindly go through, and you can from some poetic lines which are there. Okay. And what happened? The Macduff is stricken with grief and vows revenge. By then, I told you that all the perfumes of Arabia will not cleanse her hand. So this is one incident. And after that, in England, Macduff is informed by the Ross that his castle is surprised, wife and babes are savagely slaughtered, they were killed. So Macduff is in a fury. He was loss of his wife and children, and is very much a problem. And yes, and here there is a lot of torment in him. And what happened? So this is what in Shakespearean characters, there are many innocent characters that become victimized. So that's the reason A.C. Bradley tells in his criticism, does Shakespearean plays give a poetic justice? Poetic justice ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಒಳ್ಳೆದು ಗೆಲ್ಬೇಕು. Always the truth should prevail. There should be truth. Truth always prevail over. They should win over. But whereas it doesn't happen, there is no proper poetic justice. All the innocent people like Lady Macduff, and the son, and other like the Cordelia, and even Desdemona, and many other characters, they become innocent. The one of the strong accusation on Shakespeare, in that he sacrificed the innocence for the convenience. He killed the innocent characters for his own convenience to write the text. Though this should not have done. Even other critics like Samuel Johnson and many other critics also observe the same. So here what happened? So Macduff, he understands that the family is stricken with the grief and owes revenge. He decided to take a revenge. At any cost, he has to kill Macbeth and all that. So Duncan's son has succeeded in raising an army in England. So that he has to negotiate with the Duncan son, because the Duncan was killed. So Macduff immediately went to his son, and and he convinced with him, and he tells that you have to put a hands with me to defeat Macbeth. So they have raising an army in England, and Macduff joins him. He rides Scotland to challenge Macbeth's forces. Then invasion has the support of the Scottish nobles, who are appalled and frightened with the Macbeth's tyrannical and murderous behavior. When they come over here to see the Scotland, so the tyrannical attitude of Macbeth has reached the panic. So what happened? So what happened here? So they all appalled because of his tyrannical attitude, and it become a murderous behavior. He has been killing people seriously, a series of murders. So Malcolm leads an army. He decided to put hands with the Macduff, and they joined together. And along with the Macduff, an Englishman Seward, and the Earl of Northumberland. So they all flocked together. They put hands one another, and they decided to take a revenge on him. So against the Dunsinane Castle, the while encamped in a Burnham Wood. They put a camp in a forest, the Burnham Wood. Remember, the soldiers are ordered to cut down the carry tree, the branches, to camouflage their numbers. So camouflage ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ the disguise in the form of ಆ ಮರಗಳ ಹಾಗೆ ಅವರು ಕೂಡ ಒಂದು ಆ ಮರಗಳ ಟ್ವಿಕ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಕೊಂಬೆಗಳನ್ನ ಕತ್ತರಿಸಿ ದೇ ಮೇಕ್ ಆಸ್ ಎನ್ ಅಟೈರ್, ಆ ಉಡುಗೆಗಳನ್ನಾಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾರೆ. It appears as though the Burnham forest is approaching them, because the movement of the Burnham Forest, it is an indication by the witches, isn't it? So here the Burnham Forest start moving, which means the prophecies of the witches is going to be true, and certainly Macbeth is going to frighten himself. So what happened here? So so the soldiers are ordered to cut down and carry the tree branches to camouflage the numbers. So they cut down the tree's branches and they become the camouflage, they disguised as the tree, and they started towards it. And before Macbeth's opponents arrive, he receives news that the Lady Macbeth has killed herself. Here, the Lady Macbeth also killed herself. This is another, a great the pain to the Macbeth, because he's the one who did a series of crime and he has to be punished. The guilty has to be punished. So this man, and he is getting one after another the pain, suffering, and a lot of punks and sufferings and pains. And he kill. And before Macbeth opponents arrive, he receives the news that the Lady Macbeth has killed herself, and causing him to sink into a deep and pessimistic despair. He was in utterly shock. He was completely shocked, and he decided somehow is the world of hallucination, is entire the world of malady. It is even more raged. He's become even more unhappy with the death of his wife. And further, and what happens? He's certain that the witches, the prophecies guarantees invincible. But in this condition, the Macbeth is very much invincible. Invincible ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅಜೇಯ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ nobody can defeat him. ಯಾರು ಕೂಡ ಅವನನ್ನ ಸೋಲಿಸಲಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ he still believe the word of the three witches, the prophecies. How can the Burnham Forest will come approach? How can Macduff will kill me? And how can they're going to vanquish me? They're going to defeat. So these are the words there in his mind. And at that the plight, at that condition, he is certain that the witch's prophecies guarantee is invincible and he will never be defeated. He is sure about it. And but he is struck with fear when he learns that the English army is advancing on Dunsinane shielded with bows, cut from Burnham Wood in apparent fulfillment of one of the prophecies. And he was very much scared when the Burnham Forest is coming forward, reaching. Because this is a word of the three witches, and he's very much scared about it, because they don't appear. The soldier will not appear like a soldier here. They're more appear more like a like a tree. They're camouflage. They're disguised in the form of a tree. Burnham Forest. So what happened here? So this is a very important. The important concept of every act that I'm emphasizing more on, and I want you to go through immediately today and read the materials, and you mark the important point then and there, and you replicate the write the things in a separate sheet, and always made a ready reckoner which help you for your examination answer book. So that one thing that you should keep in your mind. So a battle culminates. The battle began in Macduff's confrontation with the Macbeth, who kills young Siward. So here what happened in the battle culminates in Macduff confrontation with the Macbeth. They both confront each other, one another, who kills young Siward. The young Siward is dead here. And the Macbeth boasts that he has no reason to fear the Macduff. He cannot kill by any man born of a woman, because he believes that the Macduff is born to a woman. How did he born? The thing is that Macduff declares that he was from a mother's womb. How? With the cesarean operation, cesarean section. That means there was no, he was not born to a natural birth to a woman, but rather he was born out of cesarean operation, cesarean section. So he's going to kill him. And it's not of woman born. And that's what they interpret. So interpretations have their own different meaning. That is the reason why there is the particular word called polyphony. The polyphony, this is the term where you read in post-structuralism, where the writer say that there is a multiple voice. You can interpret a word which has certain image into a different form. So different meanings are given here. So he was born to a woman. How? He is born in the form of it's a cesarean, and fulfilling the second prophecy. The prophecy is going to be fulfilled, and the Macbeth rises too late that he has misinterpreted the witch's word. There is even a lot of interpretation. There are multi interpretations, multi-dimensional. So what happens here? The Macbeth, they realize, and this is the word. This is the word. If you talk about the Greek, Aristotle say that one will have the kind of a, the catastrophic. They have their own amartia. They don't realize where they commit a mistake. A sudden reversal happens. So here, on the moment of there is a recognition, there is a sudden reversal in the mind of Macbeth. Yes, could be the words are true because I have interpreted it in everything in the natural form. But where the forest didn't turn up, they don't come forward. And whereas even the all the men, they're born to a woman. And what happens ultimately? Macduff kills him. Remember the words of witches? So Macduff is going to kill him. So all the words of witches are going to be true here. And then what happened? Macduff kills and beheads him, thus fulfilling the remaining prophecy. So eventually, Macbeth completely vanquished. He killed and he died. And what happened further? The Macduff carries Macbeth's head on stage, and Malcolm discusses how order, has been restored. And he's the Malcolm, the King of Scotland, and declares his benevolent intention to carry the country and invites all to see him crowned to the scorn. That means Macduff, the Macduff is going to be, Malcolm. Of course, Macduff kills, Macbeth, and here the Malcolm, the son of the Duncan, Malcolm, now the King of Scotland, declares his benevolent intention for the country. Benevolent in the sense, so he's going to do the best thing to the people. Because so far, Macbeth, he did all, the series of events where he brutalized them, tortured them, killed them one after another. And so now Malcolm assures that yes, he's going to keep everyone happy and he's going to do the right thing. And was known at the time when the Shakespeare wrote this text in 16th century. And another prophecy, like how the future generations, the Banquo will be future king of Scotland. Scotland, yes. How big Banquo's generation. We can't even ignore that word of the witches too, right? So the last witches say that the Banquo's future generation, their descendants, will be the future king of Scotland. So how could it be possible? So by the time the Shakespeare complete the text, who were the ruler of the England, who was in the ruling power, who had that ruling power. And it was known that the Banquo was known to the audience of Shakespeare time to be true. The James VI of Scotland was supposedly a descendant of Banquo. During the time of 16th century, the James VI, who was a ruler of Scotland, and it was supposedly a descendant of Banquo when it comes to actuality. That is how the interpreted the text. And dear students, and today I think so far in my 5 class, I had to teach another text, that is the comparative paper, that is Oedipus Rex by Sophocles. That text in the last paper I couldn't teach because of the time constraint. And so far in these 5 days, I have taught you 5 texts so far. First, the Geoffrey Chaucer Canterbury Tales, and after that, Shakespearean paper, the Macbeth, and the third paper, the Rev of the Lock. In the fourth paper, that's A.C. Bradley's criticism. And so far, these texts have taught so far, and Dr. Faster's, I've forgotten, 5 texts are taught, and and I wish you good luck, because since we have given you the notes, whenever you have the doubt, you can ring me up regarding the Oedipus Rex text. You can talk to me over phone. You can discuss. You can come to the department. We are here, teachers, to guide you. And any doubt that you have, don't regret that some texts are not covered, because this is the time where we take class for all the students. We have a time slot, and within these 5 days, we have done our best, and hope my classes certainly will pave the way for your further reading. They help you a lot, and wish you the good luck. I am Dr. Natraj, the Department of English, the head of the department, the chairman. You can always ring me up. My number is given over there. Call me during official time. And very shortly, we are giving you the assignment topics, probably in the next week perhaps, and you can start reading your assignments, and you can call me during official time for any query that you have. And I wish you good luck, you people, and do well. And so I'm going to leave the studio now, and other teacher is going to wait and he's going to take class. So thank you very much, and I'm going to leave the studio. You can always free talking to me during the official time 10:30 to 5:30. Okay, and wish you good luck for your studies. Yes, thank you, Chaitanya and Manjunath, and I wish you all the best and for your knowledge acquisition, knowledge gain. So, and leave the studio. Thank you very much.